Today I'm taking a look at this speaker. This is the confusingly named Klipsch The One II, and this came from a suggestion I received from a viewer called Zach earlier on in the year. It's even quite possible he worked for Klipsch and I'm being conned, but it doesn't matter because it's worth looking at. This is a mains-powered Bluetooth tabletop speaker. That's not the thing that makes it interesting though. It's the fact that it's got a built-in phono preamp, and that is something that's still relatively uncommon in powered speakers. If you've watched my videos over the last few years, it's quite likely you'll have seen these speakers being used. These are Roth VA4s, and it's the built-in phono stage that was the primary reason for me buying these above any of the other powered speakers. This feature is what allows me to easily connect up and demonstrate any type of record player very quickly. Back in 2017, these speakers cost me £189, but it's possible they've been discontinued now because there's no stock to be found anywhere. A more premium alternative, though, can still be found in Kanto's speaker range, and a number of these do include a preamp. However, this Klipsch speaker, this is a little bit cheaper, and it's suitable for someone looking for a compact all-in-one setup. It comes in a choice of two retro-inspired designs, and I bought the walnut wood-coloured version. Now, I'll need to talk to you about prices again at the end because there's something important I want to add, but for the moment I'll mention that at the time I bought my Klipsch The One II speaker, it wasn't available in the UK, so I bought an open box model via eBay from the US for just over $117. Now, all in, including international delivery and duties, I ended up paying a total of, well, just under $217. So inside the box, you'll get the speaker and a wall-wart power supply. The speaker is not rechargeable. This is a mains-powered only device. It also doesn't have a remote control. All the controls are located on the top, and while they look nice, they do feel less substantial and a bit wobblier than I would have hoped. Although the power switch does have a nice positive action to it. Now, my speaker had a bit of a blemish on the top, and that might explain why this one ended up as an open box special, but for me it's not a big deal. Around the back there's the single set of stereo RCA jacks, which can be switched between line level or phono level amplification, and below the DC power socket at the bottom is a ground connector for those record players that are used with a speaker in the phono preamp mode. The DC input draws a not insignificant 20 volts 2.5 amps, and the power supply for this is terminated with a right angle barrel plug, and whilst the power supply itself is multi-voltage, because my speaker originated from the US, it's only been supplied with a US type connector for it. Now, I doubt I'll be able to source the correct adapter plate for the plug, so I'll just connect mine up with a UK travel adapter. As is all too common nowadays, the power lead for this will be way too short for many people. It's only around 130 centimetres. I also feel that this could have better matched the retro aesthetic if they'd used one with a braided cable. After plugging it in for the first time, I'm happy to see that it powers on. It would be a bit of a weird video if it hadn't done at this point. But anyway, holding down the source selector for a few seconds activates the Bluetooth pairing. So let's play some music over Bluetooth and just have a listen to it. Okay, now let's plug one of my record players in that requires an external phono preamp. I mean, you could use this with a record player that doesn't require that or any other source device, but then again, there are loads of speakers on the market that are like that. The reason I got this is because of that built-in phono stage. So we'll just have a quick listen. Now, of course, everything here is working fine again. It doesn't sound that great through the camera's microphone though, much better in person. But if I had these things set up properly, I'd have the speaker perhaps above the record player on a different shelf, and then you'd have a really nice, compact and yet fine-sounding record player setup. Way better than any record player you can find with a built-in speaker. Now, there's one thing I really want to find out about, though, and that's whether or not this is a stereo speaker with discernible left and right channels. So to do this, I'm going to use a test record. So see if this demonstration sounds stereo to you. I've recorded it in stereo, so just have a listen.
My voice should now be coming only from the left-hand speaker.
Well, I am standing on the right, and you should hear me only from the right-hand speaker.
If I start a metronome and carry it with me, you'll hear me move from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And now I'm on the right with a metronome and a very pretty girl.
Cue all the complaints about this 54-year-old record which features two long-deceased performers. But in the meantime, I've noticed that this badge on the front has a protective film on it, so that's just gotta come off. Oh, yeah. That's it. Take it off. But getting back to that stereo test, I'm going to try my usual file, play it over Bluetooth, see if this is a little bit clearer.
Left, right,
left,
right,
left,
right,
left,
right,
left,
right,
left,
right.
left.
Yeah, it's definitely stereo, but I still want to take a look inside this case just to see how those drivers have been configured. It really does feel quite old school with this thick wood case and its cloth-wrapped front. It really is quite substantial. And inside here it looks like there's a central sub, and that's flanked by two full-range drivers. Of course, they're all quite close together. To my eyes, it appears that everything in here has been done to a decent standard. They certainly don't look like they're trying to cut all the corners and make this thing as cheap as possible. For example, all those wires have been plugged into that circuit board with proper connectors rather than just soldered to it. And notice how the wires themselves have been wrapped with this sponge-type material, no doubt to eliminate any kind of issues from vibrations. One other thing to mention, inside the left and right side of the case there are ports, so you really don't want to go jamming books up against this if you put it, say, on a shelf. You want to leave a bit of space to the sides of the speaker so it can give its best performance. Now, whilst its appearance is intended to stir memories of audio equipment from the past, in a way the audio itself does a very similar thing. By that I mean a lot of modern speakers use various techniques to make a soundstage appear larger than the speaker enclosure. But for me, while listening to this one, it always felt like the sound was coming from an area the exact size and shape of this speaker. I mean, it sounds great, but it reminds me of listening to an old school radio. There's no clever modern day audio expanding trickery going on with this speaker. Now, I'm not sure about the value of demonstrating the audio in this video, but see if you notice any difference in the soundstage and tone as I jump the audio back and forth between my Roth VA4s and this Klipsch speaker. Whenever you see the stereo pair on screen, that means the audio is coming just from them. And then when it's just the Klipsch, well, it's just the Klipsch. So here goes, starting with the Klipsch. Now, of course, the further apart you space those stereo speakers, the wider the soundstage. But I've got to say, I think the Roth speakers there came off as sounding a little bit harsh in comparison. But let's now go on to doing some nitpicking on the Klipsch. First off, I think it could benefit from a tone knob. You know, an old school combined bass and treble. Not only would that fit in with the retro aesthetic, but it would also be handy. If you found the sound to be a little bit on the rich side, you could turn it down, and it would also enable you to turn the volume up further before the bass distorted. Now, second, it's only really got the two sources. You've got the input on the back or the Bluetooth, so why go for a rotating source selector? A freely rotating one as well, not just one with two positions. So instead, you can turn the knob ever so slightly to the left to go up or right to go down, which seems back to front to me, but anyway. But if you continue to turn it in one of those directions, the inputs don't then continue to cycle. You have to make sure you're spinning it the right way. On the positive side, the speaker does remember the last mode you were in before you powered it down, although strictly speaking, it's not a full power down. down, as after flipping that on-off switch, the wall wart is still there, plugged in, sucking electricity out the wall and turning it into heat. I would have preferred it if the transformer was enclosed in the case and the whole thing properly switched off at power down. Some might mention interference as a reason for an external transformer, but with careful placement and shielding, it wouldn't be an issue. The truth of the matter is an external power brick is a cost-saving measure. It's easy to swap it out for different markets. And this seems like an appropriate time to go back to talking about money. See, the official price of this speaker in the US is $299. Now, that's a lot for a basic little Bluetooth speaker with a built-in preamp. But then again, it's now gone on sale in the UK and it's £299 over here, which is even more out there. That's a lot of money for what you get. I mean, it works fine, but I mean, come on, that's pushing it a bit. But there is an alternative. Whenever I've looked on eBay, there are loads of people in the US selling this speaker brand new for under $100. Now, I don't for a minute suggest it's a good idea to import one of those into the UK like I did. Even with the savings I made, it ended up costing £160. That's still a bit too much for what you get. However, if you're living in the US and you need a compact speaker with a built-in phono preamp, this is one option that's definitely worth considering, as long as you get one at the discounted rate. And then, of course, I'll have the affiliated eBay links in the video description if you want to just click through. But in summary, as long as you have no concerns regarding the limitations with regard to the volume and the stereo separation, at those discounted prices, it's without doubt one of the cheapest and neatest ways to hook up a record player that requires a phono stage. This is perhaps best suited for someone who's acquired a record player and some old records, perhaps found them in the loft, they want to set it up, they haven't got a big hi-fi system to plug it into, they don't even want one, they just want something nice and compact with a decent sound quality, perhaps they're in a student accommodation or in an apartment, they don't want to turn it up and annoy the neighbours. I think this would be the ideal setup for them. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.